Hey everyone, and welcome back to the X-Ring, part 3 of how to get your junior shooter started in precision rimfire shooting. So since episode 2, which I know is a lot of information, folks, there was some really good information from one of the viewers that commented that the rules just changed about 6 weeks ago for NRL 22. And now there's an A and B division. The B division shoots out further than 100 yards. And the A division is 100 and in. But they've also increased the price point to make it a little more attractive for that base division. So big thanks for that clarification. But like I said, that was just changed 6 weeks ago. Either way, what we're going to do is we're going to pick up where we left off with that build. However, there's been one change. I got a new MPA chassis in. I'd been waiting on one. I had one previously, and I like Masterpiece Arms. I like their chassis. And one of the things you need to realize, folks, is you're not going to have a feed ramp on most of your higher end like Bergaras and your Voodoos, things like that. So the bullet is not going to hit the feed ramp and jump into the chamber. It is a controlled feed, and typically what it does, it feeds that bullet straight into the chamber. And with that being said, it's very important for your magazines to fit properly. Now, I will give Masterpiece Arms kudos on this. I do shoot the MPA, the BA hybrid here recently, and I had another one that was on the way. But one of the unique things about the MPA is they do have an adjustable mag catch down here. Now this is very important to see because it allows you to adjust where that catch is for the back of the magazine so that you don't get feed errors when it's feeding into the actual chamber itself. So the only thing I did since the last video, I still haven't shot it, was I just switched this out for the XLR, from the XLR, the Element 4.0. So now you have that junior shooter, they have their rifle set up and everything else. I'm gonna go ahead and give this to you, Ella. Would you go ahead and say hi to the camera? They're young, their eyes are probably better than ours are, okay? We've got age on our eyes. You know, they might wear corrective lenses, I don't know, but either way, it might not be the best idea to try to share a rifle. If they can make it work, great. But the first thing you need to do is set up your eye relief to make sure that the scope is not too far forwards or too far rearwards. And the way you want to do that is you want to go ahead and turn it on max power. Go ahead and slide that over. In this case, it is 30 power, so we've got it on 30 power. And then what I'm going to have you do, Ella, I'm going to have you look down range. Go ahead and shoulder the rifle. Are you too far away, too close? What do you need to do?
Too far away.
Okay, get your head closer.
I can't, my shoulder.
Okay, so you heard that, guys. I can't, my shoulder. So this length of pull is set up for an adult. It is too long. So one of the reasons why she doesn't shoot an MPA is because I can only move this in so far. So you need to work on that length of pull, and you might say, well, shouldn't you be doing this in the prone position? Remember, guys, you're not going to be shooting in the prone position a tremendous amount. So if you set up this rifle and the length of pull for the prone position, well, now when they get in a supported position with a bag like this, their head is going to naturally be closer. So what I like to do is, especially for her, I had her on a bench or I put it on a rail so that she could actually see through it on max power and still have a clear periphery inside of the scope. Because if it's blurry on max power, there's a chance it's going to be blurry elsewhere. We haven't even set up the cheek riser yet. So let's try that again. Let's go ahead and give us a second to move positions here. So guys, what we've done is we put that fortune cookie here. She said everything's good. Now what we've done is we've got the length of pole where it's pretty good. It's adjusted decently enough for her. Now we've got to adjust that cheek riser. This needs to go up or down based on how she's looking through here. Go ahead and put your cheek on that. A little bit of pressure downwards. Are you seeing any black at the bottom or at the top?
There's black on the top.
There's black on the top. So we need to raise the rear. So we can do that just by releasing some of these screws. And what we're going to do is lift this a little bit. Okay, go ahead and tighten them up. Okay, put some pressure on it.
It's fine now.
It's fine now. So guys, this right here had to come up because she was seeing black at the top of the scope. And we don't want any of that. So the cheek riser had to go up to accommodate the smaller cheekbones. The next thing we need to do is adjust the ocular here, because my eye is going to be different than hers. What we're looking for is for her to be able to get a clear view of the reticle without having to do anything else. So the first thing you want to do is go to max power. You'll see it's on 30. And then we want to come over here to the parallax, and on the parallax we want to go to infinity. Once we do that, now what she's going to do is adjust this ocular so that that reticle is crystal clear. So without looking into the sun, let's go ahead and pick up the rifle, and we're going to look into the clouds there. I'll help support the rifle. What I want you to do is look towards me first and look through there. Is it crystal clear or not?
It's not.
Okay, so rotate it until it's crystal clear. Look away for a minute and then look back through.
It's clear.
Okay, so once it's clear, let's go ahead and set it back on the back of the Ranger. So once it's here, you can usually lock the ring. So now this won't turn because we used the locker ring. This should be set for her as best as we can do. We've adjusted the length of pull, the cheek riser, and what I'm gonna have her do now is I want her to test this trigger. Before she ever shoots it or anything else, we're pointed in a safe direction. Let's go ahead and close the bolt. And let's go ahead and feel that trigger. Now this is a 2-stage Huber Concepts trigger. Okay, guys, do you see her grip here? Let's go ahead and work that bolt up. So this one's not too hard with that 90-degree, right? Okay, so a little more difficult than what she's used to, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and close the bolt again. And let's go ahead and test fire it. So what she's going to do is she's going to take up that first stage, smooth press, and the bolt's open. Now, what she didn't do was do her hand where her thumb is on the right side. Guys, this is definitely faster, okay? By keeping your thumb on the right side, you can also see that this is made for an adult's hand, and now it's cramping up this area for her. Now, she could shoot that way, and she could put her finger on the trigger, but if you're starting a junior new, you really need to get them checking for groups downrange to see which one's better. The reason I have never said anything to her about the wraparound thumb is because when she puts the thumb on this side, she has less ability to support this heavy rifle with that hand. And then when she goes to work the bolt, she's got to make sure that that left hand's there for support. So for me, it's a little more confidence in that she has the other grip, not this one. She likes to shoot that way as well, okay? So let's go ahead and get some groups down range. We're going to test some different ammo. Stay tuned. All right, guys, so we still haven't fired a single round out of this rifle. We have no idea if it's going to even hit the paper. If you can, do this at 25 or at 50 yards, but I'll show you a quick way to hurry up and get it on paper, and then we'll start testing some different ammunition. All right, so for those that follow the channel, what I usually do on a brand new setup like this is, and I'll have to mark this riser so that it fits her, but I'm going to take the riser off so that it doesn't obstruct my view from looking through the bore. I'm going to remove the bolt. It's on a bipod up front, and what I'm going to do is use a bag in the rear, and I have a target downrange at 50 yards. And what I want to do is be able to see that piece of paper while looking through the bore, okay? So right now I can see the piece of paper looking through the actual bore itself, looking through the chamber and keeping everything as concentric as possible. I don't want to really touch anything, and what I'm going to do is just pick my head up. I want to back this power down a little bit before I do this. So I can see the paper. I'm looking through here. Oh, and I'm nowhere even close. So whatever you see here, because right now, looking through the bore, I see the paper, but looking through the scope, it looks like it's shooting well below the paper. So you would think you would need to come up, but it's the opposite. I'm going to come down. It's on the 0 stop right now, and I'm still going to be low. Now, with her eyepiece, I actually can't see the reticle. My vision's completely different than hers, so I'm going to have to adjust that. All right, I'm on the paper, just below the paper. So it is on you to know about your scope and how to adjust it if your 0 stop doesn't allow you to go any further. In this case, it's pretty simple. I just have to loosen these 2 screws. Let me do that. I'm going to save you guys the agony of that, and we'll come back, and what I'll do is I'll have it where it's bore-sighted just by looking. I still haven't shot yet. Now I can see the paper. I can see through the scope and see that I see paper. I don't care if it is zeroed out on the turret, that none of that matters right now. I just want to get that first shot on the paper itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put the bolt back in. we have a brand new piece of paper down there. Let me get a GoPro down range and let me show you what this looks like. So there's a time and place to get your junior started, and getting it zeroed is not really the best time to do that. Let's go ahead and get it on paper for them, make it a little easier. We'll go into the semantics of how you zero and all that later on. But right now we've bore sighted it. We've got CCI standard velocity. I have no idea how this thing's going to shoot. It is a brand new rifle. I did punch out the bore, but it should be on the paper at least. Downrange, I have the GoPro going. I have a number 4. It's kind of in the center of the target. That's what you want to aim for. So that way, if it's high, low, left, or right, you can at least see it. All we need to see is an impact. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get on the rifle, adjust my parallax. You don't need to get crazy with your power, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to watch to make sure we're level on the bubble level on the rear. And I'm actually going to aim for the number 4, the actual number 4. Here we go. All right, so we are on the paper. Left and right, it's good. And this is a mil scope, folks, but I want you to completely disregard everything you know about MOAs and mils, which is better, which isn't better. I don't care. I don't care how many inches it is below the target. Even if you had an MOA and you say, well, that's about 3 inches. In this case, I'm just going to use the reticle, and I'm going to look and see how low it is, whether it's an MOA or whether it's a mil reading. So what I'm going to do is I am going to put the crosshairs on the number 4, and I'm going to count down. There's 1 mil. We are about 1.2 mils low. That's it. I don't need to worry about inches. So let me come up 1. We'll do 1.1. So now what I'm going to do is I know the next shot should be pretty darn close to 0. We'll fine adjust here in just a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go for target 1, or actually it's the S target, top left-hand side. And let's see if we're pretty darn close to 0 anyway. Here we go. I'm going to go for the round bullseye, not the square at the top. I'll shoot 3 or 4 shots. Okay, that's nicking the bullseye at 9 o'clock. That is high. That is left. So I'm getting a little bit of feed issues where it's scraping the bullet, and that's not going to be good for accuracy. Elevation, I'm getting a little bit of vertical stringing, but everything is to the left. If I look in the reticle and I use the stadia lines, I'm going to be about, I need to come to the right about 3/10. Let me go ahead and skip to, let's say, center X. Now remember, we got to get that coating into the actual barrel itself. We need to give it time to do that. So I'm going to spare you guys all of that, and what we're going to do is just go ahead and I'm going to get this thing dialed in for center X. All right, so I've got it dialed in for me and my eyes with the center X. It did like that the best. So what we're going to do is now I'm going to get my junior shooter. We're going to get Ella on it, and I'm going to have her shoot at, let's say, target 4, the bullseye. I want to see what kind of group she gets. We'll see how steady she can hold it in the prone position. However, this is a good time to make sure that they have good gun-safe handling skills. They need to know how to load their own magazine. We don't need to teach them about the scope yet, but we're working on how they're shouldering the rifle, what they're doing to get their best groups at 50 yards. So let's go ahead and do that. The thing we want to do is get them behind the rifle. At this point, they might understand a little bit about shooting, but we want to talk about the finer points of shooting a precision rimfire. First thing is the bipod here. We want to make sure that they're loading. Notice that Ella is pushing forwards on it, and we actually have pressure on this rifle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get up here, and I want to make sure that she's pressing forwards. We've got the spiked feet, or you can put it up against a barricade. That's good. In this case, it's kind of slanted, so that's not the best. But we have the rifle planted. We're loading it forwards. She has her shoulder in it. Her head is relaxed. Can you see black up, down, left, or right? So it's okay if you talk. All right, so what we're going to do, see, she just took all the loading off of the bipod. She wants to make sure that she's creeping into it. Remember, this isn't bench rest shooting, but we want to make sure her fundamentals are there. So what we're going to have her do is go ahead and remove the magazine safety. So that's out. We want her to test fire a couple times. Nope, just dry fire. So what we're going to do is close the bolt. We want her to concentrate on her breathing. Her finger is going to touch the trigger. And what we do is tell them, now in this case is what most kids do. They shoot right off the bat. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure, that's why we do this with no live ammunition. Let's go ahead and work your bolt again, straight up and back and forwards. Try to make sure they're not lifting their head off of the cheekerizer. They want to keep that in the same spot. So finger is going to touch the trigger. This is a 2-stage. So what I want you to do is slowly increase pressure until you feel it stop. Okay, did you feel it ever stop? Okay, we don't want to fire it. We just want to hit that wall. Let's go ahead and work your bolt again. And guys, let them do this. You don't have to do everything for them, because I want you to feel that wall. I just want you to take it up until you feel a stop. Okay, see how she keeps firing it, guys? This trigger's dialed in a lot lighter, and it's a Huber concept. So the second stage it takes, I think it's a 10,000ths of movement. So once again, go to the wall and stop. Wait, if you're lined up. Yeah, so she feels it now. It is different than a trigger tech. All right, do you feel comfortable with that? All right, let's go ahead and load 1 round into the magazine. Make sure that they understand how to load the magazine. If you're not familiar with it, it's not like regular pistols and everything like that, because it's a rimmed cartridge. You don't want to get rim lock, so you don't want the one at the very top to be, the rim to be behind the one underneath it. Let's go ahead and open your bolt. Straight back, go ahead and insert your mag. All right, once you're on target and actually looking at the target, ready to fire. She does have the rear bag. We want to make sure she's loading it forwards. Go ahead and close your bolt. Down. Finger does not touch the trigger till she's ready to shoot, but she has to be on target. I want the nicest, cleanest shot you can make on it. Did it hit the bullseye?
Close enough.
Close enough. Let's go ahead and open your bolt and stop. So we want to make sure that they're very comfortable just working the bolt just one at a time, because when they get into moving, remember, we're trying to establish you have to have that bolt open anytime you move. It's okay if they do single shots, whether it's a repeater or not, but don't let them get in the habit of just firing as fast as they can. This is all about precision, or at least this is the way we've done it. Let's go ahead, we'll say you're advanced now. Let's go ahead and load 5 shots. And this is where we don't want them to rush. We want to make sure that they're getting good, clean shots, breaking the trigger clean, and making sure they're staying on the follow-through on the trigger. And so what that means is when she does break the trigger, and once she hits that wall and she breaks it, we want to make sure that finger's not snapping right off, okay? All right, so we're going to close the bolts. I want you to think about your follow-through. So once you fire it, I do want to keep your finger to the rear, like you're still having pressure. So when you fire it, boom, just keep it to the rear and don't do anything else. We're going to go for the same target. We're going to look for a 5-shot group. So what I do is we load the bipod. We're taking the 3 fingers here. We're pulling in slightly into our shoulder, making sure our head is clear, left, right, up, down. Keep the finger and the trigger to the rear after you fire. Perfect. Release. Now work your bolt. Don't move your head. And we don't have to be in a hurry working the bolt. Same thing. Breathing is something you want to do at either the bottom of the respiratory pause or at the top. I don't care. Just try to get them from holding their breath. They don't need to hold their breath. Keep that to the rear. Now release. Smooth. Keep it to the rear. This teaches them a good follow through. So she's on shot 3. And guys, I have no idea what that group looks like down there. So we're going to find out. She's laughing, so it must not be any good. All right, concentrate. All right, and last shot. Oh, see, she moved her head. I saw that. She didn't know I saw it, but she broke that spot weld. We're trying to make sure that this is dialed in for her. Any adjustments I need to make, I'll do that. Go ahead and open your bolt. Take your magazine out. Insert your mag block safety. All right, let me take a look through here and see. Guys, remember, not looking for pinpoint. What we're looking for is generalization on where everything is located. So if I look at target number 3, it's actually not that bad. It's a decent grouping, but generally speaking, the entire group is probably a tenth, maybe a tenth high. So if I were to have her zero this, it's not zeroed for me, it's zeroed for her, remember, I'm probably going to come down a tenth. So let me go ahead and adjust that for her. All right, so now we're down at the target. We're going to come down here and zoom in. You remember when I zeroed it, I could see the paper. I aimed at the 4, it was down. I measured it in the reticle, it was 1.2 mils low. And then all the subsequent shots after that were pretty darn close. And then I got it dialed in here with the Lapua. This was the CCI. It wasn't doing too well. And then what I did was I made a minor adjustment, and I knew I was good because my last 2 were in here. When Ella shot it, she was actually a little high, so it did vary between her and myself because I did come down from that grouping. This is plenty good enough, but what I want to show you guys is this KYL target. This is called a Know Your Limits. And you will typically see targets like this at 50 yards, sometimes 75 yards. Guys, that's 2 inches. Then you've got 1.5. I think this drops down to 1 1/4, 1 inch. But guys, look, it goes all the way down to 1/4 of an inch. So you have to make sure that they at least have good marksmanship skills in the prone position. This is usually shot prone, but sometimes they'll have you doing positional stuff. And this has been a great target for me. I am going to go ahead and plug them because I've had this target since the beginning, and this is by a target company called shootingtarget7.com. And this has been a great unit. It packs up very easy. I've seen a lot of the KYL targets where they break. I haven't broken this one yet, and we shoot this one constantly. These actually come out, they come just like this. It does run about $150, but it does pack up very tightly, and you will shoot it and it will spin. I think it runs, like I said, $150, and if you use, I think it's X-Ring 20 off, it does give you like $20 off. What I've seen with a lot of the welded ones is these things actually break down here. So this isn't welded down here, it's welded at the top. It does give you some distance. We do practice with this at 80, 90 yards quite often. So what I want to do is, and I'm not saying you have to have this for your junior shooter, but once you get to this point where they're holding, you know, a 1/4 size group or something, quarter is in a coin, not 1/4 inch groups, that would actually be pretty impressive. Let's walk through here and see what size targets we would be shooting. So on this course I've got set up, NRL 22 actually sells a target kit, and I think it's around $400, like $396. And it comes with hangers like this, but these are typical size targets, guys. Now it doesn't matter if it hits up here or hits down here, but you guys can see how small this is. This is what you're going to be shooting in NRL 22. This is their target pack. It comes with a lot of different targets, like these right here. And so I have these at varying distances out in the backyard because you don't need big distance. We're going to come on down. We have some singles still just like this. We have doubles, and you can see they're kind of littered out through there. Now I don't have big yardage here. The furthest I can reach is about 107 yards, but you'll see that's plenty enough to train on, because if I'm zeroed at 50, I'm going to be holding almost 2 mils down here at the 110 mark-ish or so. It just depends on the day and everything else. And you might say, well, how do you come up with that dope? And that's what we're coming up with next. Stay tuned. So I think it's good enough, and it's zeroed good enough on paper at 50 yards. Once you get your junior where they're shooting very comfortably, they can hold that in the prone position, they're still practicing those good fundamentals, it's really cool to get them on steel. Now, granted, guys, this is not Ella's rifle. It is not her trigger. She's not used to the platform. But for purposes of the demonstration, what I'm going to do is see if she can run that 8-plate KYL rack from left to right, going from hardest, or from easiest to hardest, and see if she can actually do it within 10 shots. Right now, she's got the rifle canted really hard left. You notice she corrected it. It's very important. So she's going first target on the left, and that's an impact. You guys can see it spinning. Now she's going to move to the right. It's going to progressively get more and more difficult. So far 3 for 3, but guys, this is when you're watching their form, you're watching their follow through. You're making sure they're loading the bipod, doing everything properly. So far, she's 4 for 4. Okay, so she's got a malfunction right now. She just ejected it. Let's go ahead and feed it again. No, you're good. Put your magazine up. It might not be seated all the way. There you go. Now go back and forwards. There you go. So rimfire can be finicky, guys, regardless of the chassis that you have. Now she's getting into where it's very difficult. So far, she's good. I think she's got 2 more targets left. And that's a miss. Did it wiggle at all? Look at the can of her rifle, guys. Do you see how much is canned off to the left? All right, you're good. You still have ammo. If you can spot for them, it helps out a lot. This is a half-inch steel. Now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this series here. Okay, so you shoot at 50 yards, you get it zeroed at exactly 50 yards. What do I dial in to be able to hit the target at 100 yards? We have no clue, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Strelok. I'm going to walk you through the steps, and we'll go from there. In Android iOS, you can download StrelokPro. You can see the red star on the right. We're going to press it, and when you press it, what you're going to see is all this information. What we want to do is click on the middle there where it says Rifle Voodoo, the big rectangular box, and it's going to say Change Rifle. If it's new, you're going to change rifle, and at the bottom, you're going to see down there, Replace with your sample data. We're going to click on that, and that's going to take us to a screen because we're going to build a new rifle profile. So at the top where it says Sample, Replace with your data, click on that, and you're going to name this. In this case, we're going to name it Bergara B14 or B14R, whatever you need to use to change it. The next thing we need to do is change the twist rate. This is a 1 in 16 twist. If you don't know, it's usually on the barrel, or you can consult with your manufacturer. Left-hand twist, that's not the case here, but you can see how we can toggle that. Next thing is scope. Scope, 0 distance, 100. Nope, it's 50 yards. That's what we zeroed at, and this is very important later on. You'll see this. So I'm going to type in 50, and then I'm going to hit done. Now, the scope height in inches is, on this rifle, about 2.5. I think 2.25 is average for most, but this one's kind of high. And then scope click units. This is a milrad scope, so MRAD is what we need, not MOA. But we need to tell it, what does each click on our turret do? And on an MRAD, it's going to be 0.1 or a tenth. The reason 0.25 was in there is a 1/4 minute of angle. That's what you would use if you had an MOA scope. So we're going to change these to 0.1, 0.1, and then the reticle. These are different scopes. It's a SCR 2mm reticle. You guys can see it has a pull-down list here. So I'm going to choose the Burris XTR SCR 2 reticle. There it is. Close enough. We're going to go ahead and choose it. That'll give us some ideas. This reticle is in the first focal plane. You would toggle it if it was second. We're going to go ahead and click that back over, and it is a 5.5 to 30. So now we are in the profile here. You can see we've made it. Let's hit the big box here, the sample, replace with all your data. This is going to be where your ammunition will be found. So you can see it says change cartridge. We don't want to just kind of guess at this. So you could do it manually, but we don't want to do that. What we want to do is scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you're going to see something that looks like a bunch of little bullets, then G7, G1. Choose the bullets off to your bottom left, and when you choose that, it's going to bring up a profile where you can see all the different bullets. Now you're going to see 6.5 Creedmoor. We're not shooting a 6.5 Creedmoor. We're actually shooting 22 long rifles. So I'm scrolling all the way up, and let's see, 22 LR. There it is. So just past it. All right, dummy, where's it at? There it is again. So we choose 22 long rifle. Once we click on that, now we can tell it who the vendor is, okay? Because it's not Hornady, it's going to be Lapua. That's what we decided on. So there you can see 40 grain exact, Midas, Cinerex. So let's go ahead and choose the center X. You can see it right there at about 1073. We're going to load this cartridge, yes. Now on the drag function here, some people use G1, some people use applied ballistics. The drag model, it's not going to be a custom. It works better to see RA4. You see the third one down? It says for 22 long rifle. This is the one that I've seen that kind of works the best. Because remember, we have no data on this rifle. We know nothing. So we're going to choose RA4 on this one. And when we click on it, you're going to see that it's going to bring up the profile. Give it just a second. And there it is. There's all of our data. It has the bullet diameter, bullet weight, and it's saying 1073. Zeroing weather, we can click on that. So we'll click on that right now because we want to take environmentals as best we can. And we're going to need to enable it. So we hit on that grayed out toggle. Now it's enabled. And in the bottom left, you're going to see Meteo. We click on it. And this is going to be your weather from the internet. So you can see the temperature, the pressure, humidity. It is very humid out here today. We're going to use those values, and that's it. So now what we do is we go back to the main profile, okay? So we've got the rifle. We've got everything in here. There it is. This is the main screen. At the top right, it says 133 yards. That was from our previous data on there. We type in 50. We hit calculate, and you're going to see some really odd numbers for our holds. Those should all be 0. So there's an error somewhere here. We need to figure it out. I know what the error is. We're going to have to go back, not to the weather, but we're going to have to go to the scope. And on the scope, when we choose it, you'll see at the top right there, it shows 100 yards. We need to change that to 50. So we're going to erase that 100. We're going to type in 50 for our 0, and we accept. Now what we're going to do is go back to that main screen, and on the right-hand side at the bottom, you're going to see what looks like an Excel spreadsheet or a chart or a table. When we click on this, this is going to be our yardage chart, if you will. So when we click on that, what's going to happen is it's going to populate what it solved last. And here we go. So it shows distance, yards, the bullet, speed, vertical correction MOA, vertical correction, or horizontal correction MOA. All that needs to be changed. We're shooting mils. So first thing, we're going to start the distance a lot closer. We don't want 100 on there. So we're going to delete that out. We're going to start it at, let's say, 0 yards or 10 yards. And we want to end it at, let's say, 150 yards. So we'll start it at 20, end it at, let's say, 150. And our step distance shows us our increments. We're going to do it every, we'll just say 5 yards. So we type in 5. We don't care about bullet speed or bullet energy, so we can toggle these on or off. We don't care about flight time or absolute drop in inches. But what we do need to switch is that MOA over to MRAD. You guys can see how I've toggled it over to MRAD. So when we go back to the chart, what you're going to see is our holds. You can read all of those off. It shows you what your drops are. And then what we're going to do is be able to change the steps if we need to, that settings at the bottom. And it gives us a really good way to reference. So for this first target, that furthest one by the whiteboard, that distance is going to be, see at 50, it shows 0. It's at 104. So now if I hit calculate, you're going to see what it shows as the hold. So that's how we get the solution to get started for our drops. A 100-yard target to the left down there it's 104. It's 1.8 mils. So what she's going to do is she's going to dial in 1.8 mils here on the turret. Right now we're not worried about wind because it's pretty calm. So let's dial in 1.8. There's 1, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then she's going to take a magazine, take a round. I think there's 1 in it.
I've already loaded this.
Nice, so she's already loaded it. She got it tilted a little bit different in that magazine. All right, so she's going to go for the target down there at 104 yards. It's just to the left of the white backer board. You see it? Mm-hmm. You're going to be able to get low enough?
I don't see it right now, but well.
Focus is on the left on that scope, your parallax. So she's adjusting the parallax on it.
Okay.
She's going to go for that little steel at 104 yards, just to the left
of the big whiteboard, right?
Yep. And that's an impact. Let's follow it up again. Impact. Okay, so guys, you understand what's going on now. Now we can build a dope chart just using this course that goes out to 100 yards. I have that set of targets, and I have targets everywhere from, you know, the 50 yards, which I showed you guys, which was right here where the KYL is. That would be 0 on the reticle. And then working our way all the way out, we would have to dial. Now, we're not going to talk about holding and all of that in this episode, but you can see this is a lot of information. I can tell you that, do you see the man steel down there?
Mm-hmm.
All right, that man steel, let's go ahead and put in 1.2 mils. Okay, so she's at 1.2. What I'm going to have her do is the targets to the right of the man steel. They're tiny, guys. It's like 1 inch. Let's see if you can hit the double over there. Start with the big one first. Impact. And the top one, which is going to be really tough. Impact. All right, so you're going to have them keep it open. So this is a great place to stop. We're not going to work on positional stuff yet, but we have a rifle that will shoot well enough to do what we want to do. At least we hope so, right? So guys, even though you might spend a lot of money for a good setup, they might not like it. It might be difficult for them. You know, the thing is, she said it's very difficult for her to close that. I do notice that it is a little harder to close than the Voodoo, but like I said, every manufacturer is going to be different. The CZ actually closes very easily, but keep your options open. You know, don't just go out and buy a ton of stuff and hope it works right, because you could have disappointing results. We have had some feed issues. That could be a combination of chassis and the Bergara with the barreled action. It could be a magazine. We don't know, but those are things we'll have to work through. You can adjust those. All right, Ella, do you think they're drinking from a fire hose yet?
Probably.
Yeah, so guys, it is a lot of information, okay? It is a lot to absorb. That's why this series is going to be as long as it is, because we're going to cover positional shooting and all that in episode 4 or part 4. But for now, your job or your homework, if you're trying to get into this and you don't have a Kestrel, is to start playing around with that StrelokPro. There are other apps out there that do a great job, like Applied Ballistics, but StrelokPro has always worked pretty darn well. You can also integrate it with little dongles on your phone to be able to get wind readings and whatnot, but it has everything you need. Everything from holds from angle, inclination, declination. It also has moving targets, just like what you shot on the last match, and you did a good job with that. So play around with StrelokPro. You're not going to break anything, and if you have any questions, just comment below. So guys, I hope you're enjoying this series. I know it's rather long, but just because you spend a lot of money on the rifle does not mean you're going to get something that works flawlessly, okay? That's something to keep in mind. When you start switching chassis, when you start switching triggers, things can go wrong. So make sure you do your due diligence and stay tuned for part 4. Ella?
Like, share, and subscribe.
All right. We'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great week.